A group of pro-life senators are pushing for an end to animal-human hybrids, or what is known as Chimera research.
In April, researchers in China created a monkey-human hybrid embryo that they allowed to grow and study for weeks. I have serious ethical concerns with this type of human chimera research.
That is Catholic Senator Mike Braun of Indiana introducing his amendment to ban experiments creating certain types of human-animal chimeras. A chimera is an organism that contains cells from two distinct species and is created in a lab. Braun teamed up with Senator Steve Daines and James Langford for this amendment, but it failed in the Senate on a party line vote. Senator Mike Braun of Indiana joins us now from Capitol Hill. Senator, welcome back. I first want to ask you, your amendment to ban animal-human hybrid research failed in the Senate, but what's next? I understand you're introducing a bill version of this.
Well, we're certainly going to keep on the topic because I was surprised that there wouldn't have been at least one Democrat that would have been against combining human DNA with that of animals. I mean, this place has gotten to be so divided, and especially when it comes down to anything that has some type of weigh-in towards sanctity of life and abortion, you just can't get anyone to come across where I know they harbor that feeling that they're probably against it, but they toe the party line. So yes, the next step, of course, if it doesn't survive an amendment, it will not get any floor action. So sadly, that was probably as close as we're going to get. We can still do that to emphasize the point. Maybe over time, enough constituents weigh in with some of the Democratic senators that still have said they are interested in ethics, interested in the sanctity of life. Maybe you could get a change of heart. We're going to keep trying.
Well, speaking of chimera research, I mean, it sounds like something out of the Twilight Zone. Why did you want to take on this issue of banning this kind of research? Is it really that much of a pressing concern today?
You know, I think it's happening in too many laboratories across the world, some even in our own country. And I think that where we're going to end up is they've declared self-restraint, doing it in the name of science, trying to find different remedies and cures. But if it goes unchecked, you know where it's going to end up. The envelope will keep being pushed, and we'll end up with something that definitely crosses that ethical boundary. And we've already been there. This is just to draw attention to it. So hopefully the places where this is occurring, they show some restraint and know that at least we're watching.
On a different topic, this week, Senator, you grilled HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra during a Senate hearing about the omission of the Hyde Amendment and President Biden's budget proposal. Here's what he told you.
The budget is a reflection of what the president has said in the past. I have thousands of votes in my 24 years in the House of Representatives. I think my record's pretty clear where I stand on this issue as well.
What do you make of Becerra's response, Senator, and why was it important to you to ask him about the Hyde Amendment, which bans taxpayer funding of abortion?
So it wasn't, but just a little time ago, he was in a House hearing, and he had forgotten that he voted against the ban on partial birth abortions. And when you've got somebody that is in his spot currently, and he wasn't clear on whether there was a law or not, number one, on that subject, and how he had voted, I'm worried about what's going to happen when it comes to the Hyde Amendment. I basically got him to admit that he and the president no longer believe in the Hyde Amendment protections. And there are going to be so many bills that are going to push the legislative threshold with the filibuster. That is something that could cascade into law, especially when it's no longer in the president's budget. So again, it's to put everyone on notice. Some of us are watching. The Hyde Amendment has been around for a long time. Democrats have supported it. Now it looks like from the highest places across the aisle that by omitting it in your budget, that gives you a good warning of what might happen.
Well, thank you for raising the issue. It's an important one and one we're following as well. Senator Mike Braun of Indiana, thank you.
You're welcome.
And joining us now is Dr. David Prentice on Skype. He is the Vice President and Research Director for the Charlotte Lozier Institute. Dr. Prentice, welcome back. Going back to Chimera research, I understand you worked closely on this piece of legislation to ban Chimera research. Can you give us some background? Where is this kind of animal-human hybrid research happening, and how common is it?
Well, Catherine, unfortunately, it's much more common than probably most of the viewers understand. It's happening around the world, including in laboratories in the United States. And I want to clarify that there are some chimeras, these animal-human hybrids, that are not unethical. The idea of adding 1 or 2 human genes to steady antibody formation or some cancer cells to be able to try and work to stop that. But we're talking about some unethical types of these chimeras. There's been a moratorium in the U.S. by our own National Institutes of Health on funding that, but it looks like that may change and taxpayer dollars be used for such unethical research.
Can you expand on what you see as the major ethical concerns here?
The biggest concerns are it's phrased as a way to grow organs for transplant or cure disease, but they're making these types of hybrid embryos very early, so early adding the human cells that you could end up, for example, with a monkey with a human brain, or another animal that might be producing human eggs or sperm, or another animal that might have human features like a human face or human hands. And these simply break those species boundaries. It's an affront, frankly, to human dignity.
Absolutely. You are a top bioethics expert, so I do want to get your take on something else as well. The International Society for Stem Cell Research announced it's removing its long-standing 14-day rule on human embryo experiments. Can you clarify what this means exactly, and how concerning is this?
Well, the 14-day limit has been in place for decades, but it's simply a facade for the public to think that science had some sort of ethical limit on embryo research. Frankly, we support a 0-day limit. But now their guidelines are there should be no limit. And this could be used to grow human embryos, human fetuses in the lab for study. There's already a scientist in Israel who claims he wants to do this, grow human embryos for weeks in the laboratory, and then simply discard them when they're done. And it's simply a push by science into very unethical realms, not for any sort of patient benefit or medical cures.
Well, on that same point, we have about a minute left, Dr. Prentice. What is your response to scientists who believe chimera research and research on human embryos is necessary for the advancement of science?
It's simply not necessary at all, Catherine. These types of experiments are not geared to helping anyone. They're to answer the curiosity of scientists, in a sense, to let them play God in terms of creating, growing, and destroying human life. There are multiple ethical alternatives, like adult stem cells, that are already helping patients, and this is where we ought to be focusing.
Well, as always, we are so grateful for your expertise and your insight here. Dr. David Prentice with the Charlotte Lozier Institute, thank you.
Thank you.